This episode of Two Guys on Mobile is brought to you by Pontiflex App Leads. Go to www.appleads.com. And by Macadamian, helping companies transform ideas into compelling, market-ready products customers love. You can find them at macadamian.com. And by Appcelerator. Build cross-platform mobile applications in a cinch. Go to appcelerator.com. It's time for Two Guys on Mobile, episode number 26. We're recording this live between Jeff and I, and it is late one night, September 13th, 2011. Whatever that is, it's a Tuesday night. You're watching this on Wednesday. Welcome to episode number 26. My name is Rob Woodbridge, one of your hosts. As always, you can find me at untether.tv or at Rob Woodbridge, and with me, from right across the room pretty much, right around the corner, somewhere else in the city, this fine city of Ottawa, Mr. Jeff Bacon. Bacon, buddy.
I think I'm closer to you this time than I normally am.
That's right. I don't like it. It's probably why we have such a great internet connection, is that...
Yeah.
Exactly.
We're physically 7 blocks closer, therefore our internet connection is better.
Well, you know what they say, the last mile, it's the trickiest. So let's get it really close. I'm pretty sure if we were in the same room, we would have the best internet connection, dialing up over mobile. So Jeff can obviously be found at the Suave Hog and bacononthego.com, at the Suave Hog on the Twitter there. I got those right for the first time in 26 episodes, 25 episodes.
I think I had 26 of them in. You finally got it right there. So,
well, you know, really sorry about the intermittent nature of this podcast. You know, things got busy for some reason, and then there's this whole thing called vacation, which is an anomaly, anyways. But we're going to try to get it back on track. I think Wednesdays is a good day to publish these things. You know, the news of the Monday, the Tuesday events are out there, and we can kind of recap and see what happened the previous week as well. And that's exactly what we're going to do today. You know, big stories, but high concept stories. We're going to talk about RIM and their market share, of course, because we have to, because we're Canadian. We're going to talk about something that happened today with Microsoft and the announcement of Windows 8, and basically, I don't even know how you describe it, dropping the Komodo, opening up the Komodo, running through Wembley Stadium naked, whatever it is, that's what Microsoft did today, which is wonderful. And if we have enough time, we're going to pull in a third story about mobile payments, and I love Jeff's little reference about who, and you've got a second now, who owns mwallet.com. Don't go there at work. Don't go there at work. mwallet.com. Don't go there at work. But before we begin, I just want to draw attention to one of our sponsors. We have 3 again for this episode, and we appreciate each and every one of them. And right now, I'm gonna throw some appreciation on to our good friends at Macadamian. These guys build beautiful apps, and I'm not just saying that. They're not just paying me to say that. I've actually used them. I'm like the Remington guy. I haven't bought this company, but I know Fred and Matt and his entire team. There's some very talented developers there. When I needed a product developed, and literally I needed to develop very quickly, didn't have the resources in-house at the company that I was running at the time, we went out to Macadamian, and they not only delivered on time, but the product was stellar. It actually helped us expand into new markets. It helped port one of our products over to the Windows Phone, or actually at the time it was Windows Mobile space. I can't say enough about these guys. I want you to check them out. They build great products. They turn your ideas into great products, and that's macadamian.com. Thanks, guys, for sponsoring us. We really, really appreciate the fact that you do it each and every episode. Keep it going. Keep it going. Just keep sponsoring us. Macadamian.com. So, Bacon. First story here. RIM. We get a lot of flack about talking about RIM, but... you know, we're witnessing probably one of the greatest case studies, one way or another, one of the greatest case studies of the mobile industry and this mobile era around a company like RIM. And let's talk about this. They're deteriorating in market share. And we all know it's a combination of the fact that they're losing market share, but also the market is growing, right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we talk about RIM in a lot of different contexts here, and we talk about it sometimes in the like, well, what are they doing now kind of a context. But I mean, I think that a lot of people don't focus on the bigger picture. They focus on the easy story, which is, okay, what is RIM doing? What are their actionable items that RIM is taking, doing or not doing?
What are they not doing? Yeah, that's where people focus on.
But I think that one thing we should do is kind of take a little higher level view and ask the question if maybe RIM is sacrificing its market share, and not intentionally, not because their product is worse than it used to be, but because what people want is no longer what the core competency of how RIM built their business on was, which is on building the best mobile email client and device available on the market.
So do you really think that what they're doing is, okay, well, first off, I mean, the big elephant in the room is the fact that they didn't release a device in a year, right? That's for a company that makes most of its revenue off of device sales, that's a pretty glaring mistake. We've talked about that ad nauseum, right? And that has a lot to do with, it has a piece of why they're suffering like they are. And everybody has their. I've seen the new devices coming out, and they're thin and they're sleek and they feel great in your hand. There's a good weight to it. They're beautiful devices. And there's rumors of the QNX operating system actually coming out before Christmas. They're accelerating this. But invariably, people are going to complain that it doesn't hook up with a Biz or a Bez. But you can't have one thing and not have the other. I mean, this is part of the great thing about mobile, is that it's eventually going to land properly, and 2012 will be the year. But one of the big things is, the concept that you're saying is that people have stepped beyond email, and RIM ultimately hasn't, right, or hadn't, or was slow to adopt.
Yeah, I mean, I would posit that they couldn't have done anything over the last year and a half to make a major impact in the difference in their market share. They could have released 17 different devices. I think, would they have more market share to do now? Yeah, but it wasn't like they were going to keep their 50, 60, 70% smartphone market that they grew, right? That was never going to happen.
No.
And it's a cyclical item. If you look back at, say, if you start back in, say, 2000, okay, in around the 2000 mark is when Nokia came out with cell phones that, suddenly they were great. They were small enough for everybody. The reception was amazing. And like Nokia's reception was better than anybody on the market.
Yep.
Those 5800 series, the 6000 series Nokia phones everybody carried around, it wasn't just because they were small and light and very functional. It was because you got reception anywhere. And you couldn't say that about the Ericsson phones. You couldn't say that about the Motorola phones. Nobody else came close. And Nokia, one of the reasons they gained that market share is that everybody was buying a phone that bought Nokia said, I get bars everywhere. What are you talking about? I don't have any dead zones. So to everybody go buy it. And so that's what people wanted at that time. They're buying a new phone. They're buying a mobile phone as their first mobile phone. They want to get reception because the killer app was voice at that time. And then around 2004, RIM suddenly started taking off. And that was because people realized that there's more than what they can do with their phones, not just voice. There's other things. And at that time, what they said was, I want to do email because that's the next biggest communication thing I want to do. And we still think of phones in 2004 as communication tools. So RIM produced the best communications phone, the best phone for email by far. Nobody was even close. It wasn't a competition. And so they dominated that market in 2004 and for the next few years. And the next shift that happened was when people said, okay, now I'm comfortable with communications, but I'm carrying this thing around all the time. What else can I do with it? And Apple clued in that what else you could do with it was everything else. Apps. People wanted to just do everything else on their phone. Apps was the big thing. And so Apple, in around 2008, released their iPhone, got on board with the App Store, and have basically won in terms of revenue share, the last 3-4 years.
Yep.
And they're still obviously really big. And so if you look at that period of time, it works out to around every 4 years or so, people get comfortable with what they're doing on their mobile device, and they're looking for what's next. What is the next thing they can do with their device? And whoever figures that out, and it happens to be next year, 2012, that's around 4 years from when Apple changed the market with their App Store. But every time this happens, a different company has won. Nokia, RIM, Apple.
Yeah.
It's never been the same company twice.
Well, I love this. You've condensed it into such a great thesis because, I traveled a lot extensively through India, and I sat with a prof in this place called Udaipur where they filmed Octopussy, for those of you who are old enough to remember James Bond and back when it was Roger Moore. And yeah, Octopussy, and it was done in Udaipur. And I was sitting in the Lakeshore Palace, which was right in the middle of this man-made lake, and I was talking to this professor, and he was saying, "Listen, the nature of India is that every 2,000 years it has a cycle. 2,000 years up, 2,000 years down, and then 2,000 years back up, and they're kind of in their 6,000th year in history, and they're on an upswing. So you're starting to see that the technology boom. This was before the technology boom, and I was looking at the guy, and he's saying, before long, they'll be launching rockets, nuclear capabilities, men on the moon, and I'm like, you're out of your mind. Sure enough, a short 20 years later, I guess they crossed their 2,000 year, and they started an upswing. But now what we're talking about is 4-year transition periods in technology hurdles, like from 2,000 years down to 4 years, and that's pretty amazing, on many cycles. But I love the succinct nature of this, and could this be, we don't talk about Android and Google's play in this, but is there something in here where is Google a player? Or are they just a follower? Is what they're doing a shift, or is what they're doing just filling the gaps?
I think what Google's doing is analogous to what Microsoft did in response to RIM, which is come out with Windows Mobile, which was okay. I mean, it provides a lot of the same functionality, and lots of people bought it, but it didn't. I mean, it was competitive with RIM, but no one ever went, RIM's in trouble because Windows Mobile is so awesome, right?
I think I did once.
Well, we'll forget about that. So when you ported your application over to
exactly.
Right? So I think in the same kind of sense, I look at Android almost in the same way, except they've managed to get wider distribution. But people look at Android and say, oh, it's good, and it does pretty much everything that an iPhone does. But Apple's concerned, and they keep moving forward with it, but they're not worried about their money that they're losing to Google right now. And they're looking at it saying, we have so much headroom to make more money on the iPhone that you can take that market share. You can ship more devices than we can. I'm concerned about the fact that I can't deal with all the cash coming in. Where am I going to store this? I need to build Fort Knox in Cupertino, right?
We'll just lend the government of the United States a little bit of money so that, there's a ton, and both of these companies are excessively wealthy, we'll say.
Yes.
Right?
So I think that it's more that terminology for Google there. I mean, I think, when I look around at stories that I've heard and investments that I've seen in the last, 6 months even, I think 6 months you've really seen where people think the next thing is. And when you see a company like Dropbox turning down offers from Apple for $800 million, and then you go, well, that's stupid. And then they raise money at a valuation of $4 billion. And rarely do I say that turning down hundreds of million dollars for your company is a good idea. Rarely will you ever hear me say that. I always say, get a good offer, take the money.
Yeah.
In this case, they already knew that their valuation would be higher. And they got that valuation with investment dollars for them at that value.
So cloud.
Cloud, yeah. You see BitCasa coming out, doing the same thing. You see Box.net going on. You see all these companies
Amazon.
in cloud storage. And Amazon is an example of a company that's rolling out that's big, but I think you see it as much in where these small startups who are successful in making money are happening, right? You see a lot of these investments in companies that don't make any money in apps, right? Because they're investing in the last 4 years.
Yeah.
But the companies that are profitable, in Dropbox, they make money. Box.net makes money. BitCasa doesn't have to do much to make money. Their cost structure is so low. So these are companies that are getting investments who are going to be profitable or who already are profitable. And you see everybody else looking at that. You see Apple going, we need to build cloud services, and Google trying to build them, and Amazon trying to build them. But I think that's, if you look at that now, you can solidly say that in 2012, most likely, cloud services are going to be that next thing. Are going to be that, and cloud services to a lot of people, you don't really know what it means. Oh, it's just storing my stuff. Oh, so I have my files wherever I want them, right? Which is kind of the Dropbox bucket nest. But what cloud is going to mean for whoever wins is going to be ubiquity. Yep. Across everything you do, mobile and non-mobile.
So I'll tell you that I think that somebody like Dropbox was insane to give up that money. Just the same way that we talk about Groupon giving up their $6 billion acquisition or whatever it was from, turning that down from Google. I mean, they're morons, and I can say that 100 times over. You're a moron. 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 Groupon, moron. They rhyme.
Who would have guessed?
Yeah, exactly. Like, you're a moron. But when I look at what Amazon is doing, Amazon is positioning itself beyond Apple, beyond any of these guys, as the next. I said this I don't even know who I was talking to, but Amazon is going to be the biggest company on the planet at some point. And they just are. They're going to be ubiquitous. And not only that, Jeff Bezos is going to be president of the world, right? Bezos is, I mean, he's a smart man, but he just, what he's doing now around cloud, it's not talking about cloud, right? He runs everybody's cloud service already with Amazon Web Services, right? He runs the cloud. But what he's talking about is connecting your device with your books, renting books. Like, man, come on. Like, what he's just doing is he's including the cloud in everything that he's doing. And he's doing that with Reach because he's got the warehouse, the virtual and physical warehouse to be able to do these things, like connect your books to your Amazon Kindle or to your iPad or your tablet or your home, and stream video. And you know, the book system is going to be included in your Amazon Prime price, right? Where you get so many books that you can rent, like a library. Like this, there's no other company that's thinking like this. Everybody's thinking about cloud. You're right. But Amazon's thinking about it. Look, you know what? It doesn't matter that it's cloud. We have it. Now we're going to start streaming video, audio, books, you name it. We're going to do it. And I don't even think that Apple can compete with photos and contacts and stuff that they're doing right now, so I can share my apps across. I just don't think anybody is thinking like Amazon right now.
Well, I agree with you that the fact that Amazon is doing things the right way, and for their company, for their business, they have made win after win after win. And if you think they've made a loss right now, you're probably just not looking 5 years out and seeing how it's going to be a win 5 years from now. So I absolutely agree with that. However, Amazon is a retailer. It is the best retailer by far in the world, if anything. But it is a retailer. They make money on selling product.
Yep.
And they could care less where they sell their product. They just want to sell their product.
Yeah.
And everything they do is all about providing more avenues for selling product. Do they care about running an app store on Android? Not really. They just realized they can sell product if they run an app store. If Google had had a good app store that they could go through, then they would have gone through Google's app store, right? Having the Kindle, having the Kindle reader on multiple platforms is because, you know, it's great. They have Kindle and they sell a lot of Kindles, but they don't care if you're using Kindle. They care that you're buying books from Amazon. If you want to run the Kindle app on your BlackBerry or on your iPhone, that's just as good to them. They'll sell you a book through however you want to sell a book.
Absolutely.
So I think that they can be a huge company. But the companies that own everything, the companies that are the biggest companies in the world and get to that state, they're not just content companies. They're not just saying, okay, we're going to work with everybody. They're saying, we're building something that is going to be part of your life. And it's something that you can use for other companies to build upon, right? So Microsoft became the biggest company they were, not because they built all the software out there. Because they built a platform that became ubiquitous and everybody wrote software for it. And they didn't go and try and write software to put other people out of business, with a few exceptions on there. For the most part, you know, Office is the only one that they made that is a significant portion of their business that put other Office suites out of business.
But you know what? I mean, Amazon is moving into the tablet space, all right? I think that the shift is happening here is that, you know, operating system and what Microsoft was able to do in the 80s and 90s is going to be very difficult to replicate in this industry. I think that in this era, going forward, now replicate it, start over, shall we say? Like Microsoft, and we're going to talk about this in the second story, is a great opportunity. Right? What they're doing is they're finally getting it, and they're one of the companies that are getting it strong. We'll talk about that. But what Amazon is doing is exactly that. They're facilitating this, right? But they own the cloud. There's nobody else that owns what Amazon owns in the cloud. When you know, web services goes down for Amazon, like it takes out every major cloud player that you can imagine, except for Google, right? And then they're another player in this. But you know what, Amazon? I'm not a fanboy, man. I don't even know where they came from all of a sudden, but they're doing the things that are right, and I think that they can win in this space as well as Microsoft. But the cloud companies like Dropbox, it's like they got a longer haul here to get to that point where they actually earn the right to turn down that kind of money. That's just my feeling.
See, I'm not sure I totally agree with that.
Good.
Yes, Amazon does own the cloud in the sense that they run the infrastructure for it, but Dropbox isn't selling you infrastructure. No. Dropbox isn't selling you the fact that they're running a cloud service. They're selling you product on top of that.
Yeah.
Who cares? Do you know where your file is stored when you ship to Dropbox? No. It's stored on a server somewhere. It could be Google's, it could be Amazon's, it could be in Zimbabwe. Who the hell cares, right? As long as you know it's secure. That's the key point. Now, Dropbox has had some issues there sometimes, but that's the same with Box.net. It's the same with Bitcasa, and same with all these other companies that are out there. So they care that they're providing you a service that you want in a format you want, and they don't care whose hard drive it's on. And Amazon's issue with owning the cloud is going to be that they put themselves into the format of like your electric company, which is it's not bad to be an electric company.
Come on.
But electric companies aren't running the world because all they're doing is they're just the wires.
But Jeff,
infrastructure companies like that.
But it's the same thing as owning the operating system. What I'm saying is that Amazon is going to own the operating system known as the cloud. And then Dropbox and Box.net and all the other ones are leasing from Amazon. I mean, they become that what Windows was in the 80s and 90s. Right?
No. They become what Seagate and Western Digital were.
Hard drives, basically?
Hard drives. And you run on top of that. So until Amazon gets higher level, they're so low level right now. They're like a virtualized hardware right now, and they're intentionally that low so that because people are saying, look, I can build my own stuff. I don't have enough hard drive to do it. I can't run that layer of it. So that's what they've produced. Until they get above being basically virtualized hardware, that's where the value comes. That's where it's like, okay, yeah, Seagate, Western Digital, all these companies, make money and they run the infrastructure. But there's only a couple of companies that have made hardware that have done that change in the world. Intel, as the perfect example of that. They make something, but they're making kind of the brain again that everybody is running on top of, and you have to compile specifically for that brain.
Yeah.
If Amazon gets to the point where you can't build a service that you can port somewhere else because of building on Amazon, then you'll get that lock-in. Yeah. That's the difference between an operating system and hardware.
Well, but you see that. I mean, what Amazon is doing is heading down that path. And I'd rather be in a spot with Amazon right now than in a spot with Dropbox. But bring this back to the mobile space around. I mean, we started this talking about RIM and losing its touch, right? And this is exactly what we're talking about, is that how many conversations like this do you think that they had inside of RIM where I remember having conversations with those guys saying, we're building an app and we want to install it on the BlackBerry, and they say, BlackBerry is an email system only. Apps are bullshit. We don't need apps, right? That was the conversation we had with RIM. And it wasn't too long ago that we had these kind of conversations. So, I think that they owned that email piece. And I think that what they've done with their latest version of OS is integrating a little bit, integrating Twitter inside of it is a perfect example of what they should probably have been doing in the transition beforehand. Maybe not Twitter, but those levels of services, bringing those into the operating system a little bit sooner.
So 3 years ago, when you talked to someone at RIM, yeah, they didn't care about apps, but that wasn't the core issue. That was a symptom of a larger problem. Even 3 years ago at RIM, maybe 4 years ago, what they cared about was the carriers and businesses. And they didn't care about the fact that at the end user who was buying their device needed a better interface. They didn't care that the end user wanted to do A, B, or C on their device. They cared what the businesses wanted, what the IT departments wanted, and what the carriers wanted on their devices. And Apple turned that on its head and said, we don't give a crap what anybody else wants. We're selling to end customers. And because RIM couldn't get past the fact that they wanted to protect that business unit and that carrier relationship, they missed the boat. And that's what happens to all these companies that go through these cycles, is they're so protective of their current business, they lose sight of what's going to be happening in 5 years out from now and preparing for that. And RIM fell into that trap. Lots of companies have fallen into that trap, and very few of them have the resources to dig themselves out. Microsoft is a perfect example of a company that continuously falls into that trap, but has so much money, they're able to just buy themselves out of that, and they come back again, and then 5 years later, like, oh yeah, we screwed up, we lost $10 billion on it, that was pocket change, whatever. So even Apple thinks that they're so big and they have such a high valuation, which is true, but they have had such an up and down through their history. I'm not so sure that if they miss the boat on one of these things, that they'll be able to come back again. Like, they'll go down, and people will be like, what happened with Apple? How did they miss that boat? And if they're too protective of that customer base of what they have now, if they're too protective of their walled garden, and they say, no, we're a walled garden, this is what we do, and people's attitudes change and they miss that, they'll get left behind just like everybody else has.
So a great segue into our second story, obviously, around one of these comeback kids. And we saw an example of it today, being Tuesday, What do you use today? September 13th. But before we get into the story, that's a trailer. I'm learning how to do this properly, right? It's like, before we get into that, I want to draw your attention to our second sponsor. Great company that I've done a lot of work with over the years as they've been developed, and they've been featured here a couple of times. Appcelerator. This is a company that, man, like if you want to build a cross-platform application, I'm not just talking about iOS and Android, or iOS and Android and BlackBerry, which they do, but I'm talking about that real connection, which is we're going to talk about Microsoft in a second about this, which is the connection to the desktop. You want to build a tablet, desktop, mobile, regardless of the operating system, multi-language, hit a button, push play, deploy native applications across all these platforms. This is one of those platforms that you have to build on. It's Appcelerator. Go to appcelerator.com. I interviewed 6 Wunderkinder about their application Wunderlist, and it's up there on untether.tv. And Jessica Erickson walked us through the process that they took, and they said they couldn't do it without the using Appcelerator's Titanium platform. So go and do yourself a favor. It's open source. It's free. Go and take a look at it. You can pay for it too, and you probably will want to, but it's free. And we appreciate the fact that they're doing this, because if you really want to build these cross-platform applications, take a look at Appcelerator at appcelerator.com. Thanks, guys, for supporting this podcast and untether.tv. So let's talk now. Man, let's talk about this, because I've never seen Jeff so excited. I've never seen Jeff such a fanboy of Microsoft than I did before we started recording. I wish I could have done it, because he was doing his little Microsoft dance. He's like, I don't know what it was, but it was a little weird, kind of creepy like that. And if I was wearing pants, I would stand up and show you, but I won't. So, let's talk about what happened. Windows 8 announced today. Whew. Not only announced, but basically demoed, fully unfettered. Like, here it is, guys. This is a different Microsoft, what we're seeing.
Oh, very different. I wasn't surprised that they were totally open with what Windows 8 was. I was a little bit surprised that they basically are providing a downloadable live preview of Windows 8 to anybody who wants it. No, like, registration codes, none of that. Oh, go and torrent the next version of Windows because you can't get it anywhere else.
Yeah.
They are going, we know what is our bread and butter, and our bread and butter is developers. And they're the company that forever, as long as I can recall, has had the mantra that all of these mobile companies have tried to have to try and win, which is developers, developers, developers. And I mean, you all have seen the Steve Ballmer clip on it, right?
Developers.
But he's right, and that's the reason Microsoft always wins. And the reason, well, besides the fact they have billions of dollars of cash they can burn and whatever the hell they want to, but developers is what every platform needs, because every platform needs apps, and people build apps. So if you don't have developers, you don't have apps. It's as simple as that.
Yep.
So Microsoft has announced Windows 8, and how that is key to mobile is that when you look at Windows 8, what you see is Windows Phone 7. You see the Metro user interface front and center on everything. Everything's been completely redesigned in Windows 8. Yeah, there's a backwards compatibility mode where you can run the old applications, which is always there in Microsoft software, which is why it'll never be displaced as the #1 desktop operating system, because there's such an installed base of stuff that always runs. But the new UI and the new APIs for it that make building applications for Windows 8, which is going to be Windows Phone 8, which is going to be on every Microsoft device that's out there, tablets, phones, PCs, laptops, they're all going to run the same operating system. And Xbox will run some version of it as well too, I'm sure. I think it runs a Windows kernel right now. So Microsoft has shown that what they're doing is looking at winning the next stage. And we talked about what is the next thing. We talked about Nokia and RIM and Apple all taking these paths to figure it out. And Microsoft, we always joke that it has to fail twice before it can succeed at something. And the Xbox is maybe the only exception, where it only failed once, the first release of the Xbox. But normally it takes a few releases from Microsoft to kind of get it.
Yep.
And they have billions of dollars they can spend on doing it. And what they've done now is, if Rob, you and I had been at Microsoft 10 years ago, maybe later than that, maybe only 6, 7, 8 years ago, and we had said, look, you know what we're doing right now, we need to look at the future. We need to look, where are we going to be 10 years from now? What is the visionary, totally out there view of where money will be made and what people are going to want 10 years from now? Look at this thing. People, you're crazy. No one's going to want that. That's totally not going to get there 10 years from now. We're not going to be using Star Trek pads 10 years from now. Oh, wait, maybe we are. But they put that vision in place, and if you look back now, you can see the things that they have done over the last 5 to 10 years that, succeeding or failing, have pushed themselves further down the path to success now and moving forward over the next few years. And Windows 8 is going to be this cloud service we've been talking about that Amazon runs, but we don't care that they run it because what's on it is Windows 8, and what you're building apps for is Windows 8. And when you take your tablet home and you set it on your desk and you have a full-size monitor, keyboard, and mouse sitting there that you plug into, and then when you walk away, you grab your tablet with you, and it's your entire computer. It's not what you happen to sync, what you happen to back up. It's not the contacts that are on there that are not synced with your phone over here. No. It is your entire computer running from the cloud with local cache storage, synchronized with your phone, with a work and a play area to it as well. It's your life. Yep. That's what it is. That's what they've released is version 8 of your life moving forward.
Version 8 of your life.
That's right.
This should be the Microsoft commercial. But you know, one of the things about Microsoft is that they were ridiculed 3 years ago when they went underground after 6.5, Windows Mobile 6.5, to re-engineer Windows Phone 7. They were ridiculed about the name Windows Phone 7. They were ridiculed about the fact that they said, listen, the operating system is dead. Microsoft is dead. They can't come back from this because of the power players that are in here in Android and iOS and BlackBerry at the time as well, and still to this day. And then they were disappointed with their their Q1 results, their Q2 results, their Q3 results, the first year, in fact, of Windows Phone. But that's exactly what they did. They realized they came to a dead end, right? They came to a dead end with their mobile space, and they said, we can't build on this anymore. This is terrible. We recognize that. We're going to take a step back and we're going to fix it. And a company like Microsoft can do that. A company like Apple can do that with their cache stores. But I contrast that, and I think, let me finish that sentence. I think that what Microsoft did there was exactly what you're talking about. Is that, look, we're not going to win this in the next year or two. We're just not. Nobody's going to win it. But 5 years, 8 years down the road, we're going to win this. And I've always likened Microsoft to a glacier, right? Big, slow, plodding, and I mean this in relative terms to some of the young startups that are doing this around it, right? But one day you wake up and you're encased in ice. And you're like, what happened? How did Microsoft own the world? That's what happened with their operating system, and you don't stop Microsoft. That's that. And I see that what Google's doing on the flip side is they try a couple of things, they spend a bunch of millions of dollars in this testing phase, and then they fail, and then they go and buy Zagat, right? Because they're like, oh, fuck it, we're going to go buy the company, right? And what Microsoft has realized is that they can do that, but they integrate a little bit better, and they build. They're an engineering company, and some people say Google is, but they've lost that, man. They go and buy when they make mistakes. And at some point, that well ain't going to be as full as it once was. And companies like Microsoft and companies like Apple are just going to feed it. And I'm not saying that Google's dead, but the
difference is that Google and Microsoft are both engineering companies, yeah, but the culture of how they release products is different. Yeah. So what Google says is, yeah, we're going to release version 0.1 and 0.2 and 0.3 and 0.4 and 0.5. And if by the time 1.0 hits, it hasn't been successful, fine, then we'll cancel it. Yeah. Microsoft says, nope, we're going to invest internally all the way to 0.8, 0.9, 1.0, and if we don't like it, we'll kill it. That's fine. You won't get it, or you might get it out there. But they'll waste a bunch of money internally doing it. Yep. But they're going to commit to it. I mean, they'll release version 1, and if it doesn't work, they'll release 1.5, and they'll release 2, and they won't kill it until they get to Windows Mobile 6.5, before they finally realize, okay, you know what? It sucks, and we've got to go back to the drawing board. Fine, all right, that was R&D. They're basically saying, you know what? The products were pushed on the market. It was relatively successful. It kind of got behind the times. That was R&D. Now we know what to do for the real product. And they just look at it and they just say, you know what? Fine, we're going to put it out there, and if it works, it works. If it doesn't, all right, we'll go back to the drawing board and do it again. And they realize that they have the money to do that. Google has the money to do that. It's just they come from the startup culture, right? Microsoft's culture has been ingrained from the 80s when it was big companies and IBM and that kind of thing. As much as Microsoft is different than the old IBM, it's the culture of that product development is still kind of there.
Cycles. Yeah,
exactly. Whereas Google comes from the culture of rapid prototyping startups of get it out there, throw it up on the web, see how it does, change here, and go forward. And it's not that Google can't succeed that way. It's just that it takes a different way of doing it. And just as you said, they kind of put point 1 out and point 2 out, and what Zagat did was went right to point 3.
Yeah.
Right? So the problem with what Google does is they show what they're doing and they move it forward. And you have all these other startups that do the same rapid prototyping, but not on 100 things, on one thing.
Yeah.
Right? And so you get 5 companies all trying that one thing, and then 5 companies trying this other one thing. And then you get Groupon doing this one little thing, and Google learned from Groupon, right? Google will go out there and do the same thing and say, oh, well, we could just buy Groupon. We'll try and buy it. And Groupon said no, and they said, oh, okay, well, I guess that stuff works, so let's just do it.
Yeah.
Right? With Zagat, they tried to do it, but the problem was the Zagat's value was in the content and in the users that were there, where Groupon didn't have stored value. Right? It was easy for Google to build a system to distribute coupons.
Yeah.
It wasn't easy for them to build a system that had a backlog of millions of reviews in it.
Yeah.
And that's where I think if Google makes these decisions moving forward, they can really save themselves. Well, save themselves. I know they're a big frigging company, but they can help themselves by saying, okay, we'll use our cash for acquisition instead of using our cash for 5-year research and development cycles internally. And say, you know what? That $4 billion that Microsoft threw into Windows Mobile 6.5 and didn't work out, we'll throw it into Zagat, and we'll buy it, we'll have the users, and we'll keep moving forward and kind of feed the engine. Google's engine is search, right? That's all of Google's money basically comes from serving ads in all the different ways they possibly can, and they spend all their money trying to find different ways to get ads in front of you, where Microsoft's money comes from the operating system layer. And they spend all their time trying to build an operating system that developers want to use because they can get programs in front of a ton of people. Just the way Google tries to get ads, developers try and get their software in front of a ton of people. And so that's like they are like the same and different at the same time, and they can both be successful at it. And the question I have in there is, can Apple do neither and be successful at it long term?
I won't pretend to know the answer to that, other than you see the rolling out. So Windows 8 is a play for this, which is ubiquitous computing. So it's Windows 8. It's one platform. You build for one platform, and it works across all, right? And whether it's a desktop, a laptop, a tablet, whatever comes next, a screen, a smartphone, your gaming system, it's smart. Exactly.
Minority Report, right?
Everything like that. But what I mean, you see this a little bit in Apple, right? Is that Apple's going to own the living room, and that's a big battle that's going on right now for a lot of these guys, and they're going to do it with mobile devices and connections to your television set and dumb screens. But what Apple's looking at is, I mean, we're going to hear it soon. We know, first of all, the iPhone 5 is going to come out. iPad 3 will come out next year. We're talking about an Apple TV. Not just Apple TV, but an actual physical television set. All of these are going to be running iOS of one sort of another. They're going to transition their desktops, their laptops into iOS devices. You just know that this is all coming in some way, shape, or form. This is going to be packaged up the same way that Windows 8, maybe not the market share, but you see these things moving towards, so that the interactive nature of it is that you're working on your laptop, and you basically, I don't know, what are you going to do? You're going to pick up your laptop and demonstrate here, and you're like, you flick it at your TV and it goes onto your television set like you do with your iPhone. Whatever it is, there is a battle here, and it's being fought on multiple fronts. Microsoft was the first to come out and say, look, hey, we're as close as anybody. But Apple, I think, do they have it in them? Sure. The question is, do they want to do it? And that's always where they get a little bit of that elitism, right? And Google's just like a little horny dog. I'm gonna do it all, man. I don't know how to describe it any other way. They kind of remind me of Corel back in the day, right? Where Corel was like
very much,
which was in every business, right? And it led to their demise, right? So. Again, I'm not predicting the demise of Google, but if it happens, you heard it here first. And if you think I'm crazy, I'm crazy. I did build an application for Windows 6, Windows Mobile 6.5, right? So
we're just going to start predicting the demise of everybody, and then 5 years from now,
I told you.
Don't look at this one. Don't look at the next one. But the one after that, we were right on that one too.
That's right. Or it'll be like, if you see me on the street somewhere because all my predictions are wrong and you realize I'm a complete fraud, flip me $1 or $2. Just do a guy a favor, right? I'm living in that box.
I'm going to short sell based on all of your predictions.
That's right. You know what? I had a guy working for me once that, we watched what RIM was doing and the demise of RIM, and he's like, I sold all my stock last night. I'm like, are you crazy? Right? And yeah. So, is there anything else to say about Windows 8 other than what they're doing is thinking so far ahead that, it's funny to be rooting for Microsoft again as the underdog.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything else to say aside from that I have not yet used a tablet that I found fits into my lifestyle, partially because of the lack of integration with everything, with my desktops and my phones and everything like that. Like, why I have to sync everything in 6 different times is just ridiculous, and it makes it useless for me. And I've said for a while that the tablet that will fit in my life will be a Windows 8 tablet, because my desktop and my Windows 8 tablet, they'll just have the same files on them. And my next phone right now, I'm replacing my iPhone 3GS with an iPhone 5 when it comes out. But after my 18-month cycle on the 2-year cycle on the phone there, I almost guarantee you it will be a Windows phone, because I almost guarantee you I'll be running Windows 8 on my computer, and my Windows tablet will work well with it. And if I buy a Windows phone, I will have to do zero setup. I will plug it in.
What is that, mid 2012, early 2013? I'm going to call you up.
2 years. It'll be late 2013. It'll be the fall cycle of phones, is my guess, in 2013, when I'll have both a Windows 8 tablet and a Windows phone. Because when I pick up the phone out of the store, I'll plug it in. It'll say log in with your Windows Live account. I'll log in. Boom. Everything will be there.
It's kind of like what Google's doing, though. Like, it's what Google wants to do with Gmail and Calendar and Docs.
It's what they want to do, except Google has yet to be successful on having people run everything through the web browser. And I use Google Calendar and I use Gmail, and yeah, it's fine. But you know what? Outlook is way better. Yeah. And Google's Gmail is just not great. Like, it works and it's free, and so I use it on my domain. But would I rather use Outlook? Yeah, it just doesn't work that well with Gmail, so I don't have it hooked up to it.
I love it.
So same with the calendar on it. Like, does it work? Yeah. Does Google Docs work? Yeah. But I'm pretty sure that when I have a phone and everything where everything is natively built in, that it's not a secondary app that's running, that it's a native app that's running on it. So anyone that integrates with that service will integrate with it. That's when it'll build.
Well, again, we're a little bit off topic in the mobile space, but when it comes to this kind of stuff, we're still thinking in the old paradigm. And this is where we got to get out of our head. It isn't about a word processor anymore, is it? It's not about an Excel spreadsheet anymore. It's about using the appropriate tool at the right time with the right device. And if you get out of the context of that, and we're years away from this, I don't ever use Word. I don't use a word processor. I don't use any of that stuff anymore because I use Evernote, right? It's changed the paradigm for me. I use email, I use text messaging, I use Twitter, I use all of these different tools that sum up the same thing. Now, I'm not a heavy Excel user or a spreadsheet user, but we got to get out of that mode and into the mode of the tablet, or the mode of using the tools for the right tools for the right job.
Yeah, and I'm in a different way from you. I don't use the programs like Evernote and things like that. I find doing that kind of typing on a tablet right now just doesn't work for me. I use Word a lot. I use Excel a ton, and they just don't work as well on tablets. And
that's why I use a Mac. You use a PC. Like, this is a Mac and PC commercial right here, isn't it?
Well, it could be, but Microsoft Office works great for me. But even if it was running on a current tablet right now, and even on my Windows 8 tablet, I'm not going to be typing massive long documents. I'm not going to be doing complex spreadsheets on the tablet until I sit down at my desk and suddenly it works with everything sitting on my desk. I don't have to plug a mouse into it. As soon as I put it on my desk, it's near my mouse, the mouse starts working, the keyboard starts working, and I start typing away. I come home, I sit down, and my keyboard and mouse that's sitting here right now in front of me on this laptop that never moves anywhere. As soon as I bring my tablet in, boom, suddenly it's there, it's on my screen, I start typing away, and I go. And that's how it will change our lives, when mobile becomes kind of taking that cloud with us as we go, so we can use the convenient services on a tablet and on your phone when you're on the phone. But as soon as you're in a situation where you have more convenient ways of doing things on your device, they just work.
Well, I can't wait for that day. It's a battle right now. This is going to be a conflicting thing, and I think that the last place that people are going to, the last piece of that territory that people are going to be fighting for is the dash, and that's what we're talking about. It's not just your car dash. It's not just your your operating system dash. It's your kitchen dashboard. It's your living room dashboard. It's your office dashboard. That's the battle that's going on right here, and it's pretty awesome to watch. And I can't believe that what we're seeing is this emerging upstart named Microsoft, leading the way again after being ridiculed for the last 5 years around their strategies. And who knows? Maybe Ballmer was the right choice. Who knows? Maybe Ray Ozzie wasn't the right choice, right? Like, whatever happened here, something happened that put them in a good frame of mind. Maybe they had a conversation with President Bezos, right? World President Bezos. I don't know. But I think we've hammered that to death. Really interesting to see what's going to happen over the next little while. We're obviously going to stay on top of this. Do we want to attack our last story?
Let's leave that one, because that one's one that we can do in the next podcast. So.
Okay. Well,
our next one's an awesome story, though. So our next podcast.
How is that for a trailer for our next podcast, right? But I do want to bring in our third sponsor before we sign off, which is a Pontiflex App Leads. If you go to appleads.com, these guys are certainly a non-intrusive way to bring ads into your applications, and they pay out exceptionally well. One of the things that I haven't mentioned about these guys is that they also pay very quickly, which is something, if you're an app developer, you want that. And Jeff, you know what I'm saying. It's like, you did a lot of work with Magmic and the carriers. It's like 90, 120 days, big checks, like, hey, starving startup over here.
Yeah.
When you start to get, that was painful. So with these guys, they pay quickly, but what they do is they pay out sometimes up to 100 times the eCPM that you'll get from other providers. And this is one of those things where you build an ad, you stick it into your game or you stick it into your application, and it doesn't take people out of the application. It's a sign-up ad, so basically it pops up. It's relevant to your application. People sign up with their username or with a name and an email address for an ad or an offer. And what happens is that you get that email address. As a developer, this is golden to launch your second and third applications with a mailing list. Oh my God. You launch with a start. You don't launch from ground zero again. So what I would implore you to do is take a look at Pontiflex App Leads. Go and they have great advertisers. But please, if you're an app developer and you want to make a little bit of money, which we hope you do because we want you to be around, want to feature you on Untether.tv, please go to App Leads. And if you do, let me know about it. Reach out at untether@gmail.com and let's get you on the show and we'll talk about that experience. Go to check out Pontiflex App Leads at appleads.com. Well, we went way over on those two stories. The third one we are not going to talk about now. We are actually going to talk about next time we get together, which will be next week. So you're going to have to come back. And I'm not even going to... I give you a hint at the beginning, but in the moment, you can go to mwallet.com and just do it.
Not safe for work. NSFW.
NSFW, for sure. Unless you work in the porn industry, right? I want to say, I don't know, just MWallet. I can't believe, what a scoop, Jeff. MWallet.com.
I was just like, oh, crazy, MWallet. That would be a great name for this kind of story relevance. I'm like, I wonder if anybody's got MWallet. Somebody has to have it. Type it in. I'm like, all right, close the browser window.
That's right. Well, it was like the porn pass, and we've already talked about that, I think, in like episode 10 or 11. But that's
I waited a couple minutes before closing the browser window.
Exactly. This is work. I have to explore.
I was like, oh, I shouldn't be looking at this. Oh.
There's alarms going off. Somebody's going to steal my computer.
Be right there. Click, click.
Well, I don't know what else to say. I found that this has probably been our best podcast.
One of the best. We've had a couple of other really good ones where we got off on tangents and went to some rants, which have been great. But I think this Windows 8 and the kind of looking at the cyclical nature of mobile that you can see now that it's been 12 years and not just been 2 or 3 years has been is interesting.
Well, I would rank this high. I would rank this high up there in our top 5, maybe top 3. I don't know. But out of 26,
what a way to kick off the next 25 episodes of Two Guys on Mobile.
That's it. I love that attitude. Well, I'd like to know what you guys thought about this. Did you like it? Did you hate it? Are we on crack? Are they getting better? Are they getting worse? Let us know. The later we do these, it seems that the more loose we are and a couple of drinks into us, and it works out pretty well, Not saying that we do that, but I'm just saying later at night seems to work better for us than early in the morning. Let us know what you think. Untether@gmail.com. You can reach out to Jeff as well. You probably found this on his podcast at bacononthego.com. But reach out to him, and we want to hear what you think about this. Honesty, good or bad, let us know. And if you have any stories you'd like covered, reach out. Let us know what they are, because we're always open to deep, in-depth conversations around stuff in the mobile industry, which is what we're trying to bring to you here. So thank you guys for watching.
And if you have stories that you think we just like and be interested in, I'd love to get them on Twitter and send me a link to them, because I'm always reading and always looking for good stuff on there too. So please hit me up there and send me, if you see an interesting story you think we'd like, pass it along.
Please, 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 please. All right, we're going to shut it down. We'll be around for episode number 27. My hope is 1 week from this time where you're actually watching this, we'll get into a groove, and we'll get back into a groove. But 26 episodes in, top 3. Let us know what you think about this. Jeffrey, thanks, man. Can't wait to do this again.
All right.
We'll see you for episode number 27 next week. Later, everybody. Thanks for watching.
See ya.